Hey everyone, my name is Mary Beth, and there is one thing in my life I am afraid of most of all. It is not spiders, darkness, or even robbers. Most of all, I am afraid of real life communication with all people in the world except for close relatives. At that, I love people very much and do not have any negative feelings towards them. I was born in a family of zoologists who had spent more than half of their lives traveling. They could study the living conditions of a kangaroo in Australia for almost 2 years. Then they could go to the Arctic and help polar bears, or they could make the Animal Channel shows about animals in Africa living there for almost 5 years. It is not difficult to imagine that my parents have barely been involved in my upbringing. I was put in my grandmother's care. My parents tried to compensate for their absence in my life with unique gifts, such as a mammoth tusk, reindeer horns, or a feather of an African gray parrot. My grandmother had conservative ideas about life and therefore was really strict with me. She never let me out for a walk. Instead, she used to take me to folk dance clubs and home economics courses. At school, I always tried to keep my head down so that by hook or by crook to avoid communication, and since this was not always possible for me, the school became my personal hell. If classmates ignored me as best they could, the teachers kept asking me something during lessons. At such moments, I could die and get resurrected many times. As a result, I managed to persuade my parents and grandmother to homeschool me. After they agreed, I felt much better. I don't need to tell you that I have never had friends, and even when I began to sense the whole depth of my problem, my grandmother said that everything would be fine when I got older. She added that I had to concentrate on my studying and dancing and not on partying with friends. I complained about loneliness to my parents, who used to call me via Skype once a week. For them, my feelings seemed ridiculous, and they kept telling me enthusiastically about their friends in every country of the world and how easily they could build understanding with people. They were hinting that extroverts couldn't give birth to an antisocial child. So I have always been left alone with my problem, though I made several attempts to solve it myself. For example, once I read an article written by a psychologist. It said that people with my problem should try and fight fire with fire. I decided to try this method, so trembling, I went to the very center of our city at rush hour in a cow costume, which I had bought in advance on the internet. There were hundreds of people around me. They were in a hurry somewhere and talked about something with each other, but in my head, their voices merged into a single guffaw that paralyzed my brain. The adults and children began to come up to me and ask something. It's easy to guess that it didn't end well. My panic attack started. It seemed to me that I was out of air, and besides, I got severe dizziness. As a result, I was taken away from there to the hospital. Since then, I have not experimented on myself anymore. And if you think that just avoiding the crowded places would solve my problems, then you are very much mistaken. If I met a neighbor in the elevator, I would almost die because I know that she will ask how I am, how my grandmother is, how my parents are, and how soon they will be back home. Therefore, I try to hide somewhere or just run away from acquaintances when I meet them on the street. Sometimes my fear runs to the absurd, and I can't force myself to talk to anyone, even for the sake of saving my property and life. Once on the bus, I noticed that some guy was opening my bag and taking my wallet away. I wanted to scream or just tell him to go away, but as you know, I couldn't do this, just as I couldn't even yell for help. Of course, there was the other decision of the problem. All I had to do was get off the bus. But it was rush hour, and there were so many people in the bus that I could not even turn around. So, sobbing with resentment, I just waited for him to pull out my wallet and get off the bus. Only after that, I left the bus myself, sat down at the bus stop, and cried for about 2 hours, cursing and scolding myself. If I couldn't even defend myself, what in the world could I do? What was I capable of except for hiding endlessly from myself? Grandma died last year, and my parents were forced to return for an indefinite term. And I got the impression that they didn't know me at all. Dad constantly called me to play the mafia game in the company of 10 people, and my mother kept inviting me to meet her friends. It only made me mad. I was even angrier because my parents were very indignant at my refusals and kept saying that I was impossible and had to grow up and integrate into social life. They used to say that I had to stop feeling sorry for myself, hiding in terror. As a result, instead of homeschooling, my parents sent me to school again, which was located in the neighboring area. I didn't know what I had done wrong and why they decided to punish me like that, but it was very cruel to me. It is not difficult to guess that when I went to school again, my life turned into one continuous torment. My classmates came up to meet me. The teachers asked me to introduce myself to the whole class, and they also made me read poetry out loud. I'd been holding on 2 weeks, and then I told my parents that I couldn't do it anymore, and from that day I would never set foot in a school again. Oh, what a terrible scandal happened at our place after that. My parents said that I was arrogant and simply considered myself better than my other classmates. In their opinion, that was the reason why I didn't want to go to school. Dad even threatened to take me to school by force. Fortunately, we still managed to move to the path of dialogue, provided that I would start seeing a counselor. Well, if to compare school and a counselor, then the counselor seemed to me to be the lesser evil, so I agreed. In total, I had 3 meetings with him, but he never heard a word from me. In order not to panic during the sessions, I abstracted and imagined myself to be an astronaut on the moon. The counselor just made a helpless gesture and told my parents that I didn't even listen to him, so he couldn't help me. Soon, one incident changed my life greatly. I took part in the slogan contest for a car dealership and won a sum of money, about $100,000. To be honest, I did not believe in my victory because I never aspired to wealth. And when I finally realized the whole situation, the organizers of the contest told me that to get a check for the $100,000, I would have to come to the new car dealership opening and get my prize on stage. What? They wanted me to appear on stage? Never! Why do they impose such a stupid condition? I was really mad that I could not get the prize. Although I tried to negotiate with myself in vain. I didn't even say anything to my parents about the prize because I knew what kind of reaction would follow. And then, after I had already come to peace that I would not get the prize, the organizers of the contest began to try to get in touch with me. I ignored their calls, but they began to write via email. In their letters, they asked me why I did not answer them. There was less than a week before the opening, and they still had to prepare a bunch of papers. And then I wrote to them back and told them that I had to refuse the prize because I was an antisocial person and I was terribly afraid to go on stage and talk to them. Then they offered me another option. They offered to transfer the money to my bank account, and in turn, I had to join them online via Skype. They needed my consent. And I decided to take a chance. What if it worked out? After all, I had never tried to communicate with strangers online. There is no harm trying. If something goes wrong, I would just disconnect. That's what I thought. And I did it. The show presenters called me right from the stage, next to which there were several hundred spectators. They all saw me and heard our conversation, and I was not afraid at all. It was so cool. Then I received the prize in my bank account, and a new stage began in my life. After all, if I can communicate online, then I can find virtual friends and talk to people on social media. Why not? I created an account on TikTok, and from that moment, I post videos there about myself, my hobby, calligraphy, and about how I struggle with my fears. I already have more than 150,000 subscribers. They say that my videos are very interesting, and they like to listen to me. So that's how I managed to realize my potential, though it was strange and unexpected even for myself. Most importantly, I just love what I do, and I like to communicate with my subscribers online. I even made some real friends online. Just think of that. Maybe someday I will meet them in real life or arrange a meeting with my subscribers because they really want me to organize it. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Do you like real life communication with other people? Write your answers in the comments and be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel.